Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is From the Body's Soul to the Soul's Body. A play on words with an important implication. Of course, each human being has a different response to the world they perceive, and how meaning comes across is different for people. They may look at the same events, the same stuff, even the same ideas, only to discover that what the idea means, and once the idea, like a satellite, enters the universe of that person, it is based on their universe. That means if an extraterrestrial lands on our planet, we are judging it based on what we know about Earth. And when a human being communicates to another human being, what they receive from the other is in some sense similar, where you're judging reality from your inner realms first, because that's where the sense of the viewer behind your eyes is, you know. Now, an archaic model for the human being was the model of primitive. It's traditional. The body, mind, soul idea. You know, it's interesting when you look back. People felt they were souls. You know, they felt there was some sort of divine game going on. You know, then the soul began being pushed aside, especially when Friedrich Nietzsche said God is dead and man killed him. He meant that the human being's attention went on beyond abidance with the rhythms of nature, whatever way they display themselves. You know, when I see a bunch of human beings praying, that's something is happening there. It's some sort of rhythm game of attention. You know, it doesn't matter. It's like when we realize we're rhythmic creatures, a lot of things make sense. You know, I think for the human being, the question, what is the meaning of life? That question, it will evolve to a point where it's going to be a rhythm, where the meaning of life is to hear the music and dance with it, you know. Now, this idea of let's entertain the traditional model of the body, mind, soul. Now we see the idea of the soul, or something underlying this physical framework, has been denied. The last stance, the last stronghold of the unknown is the mind. That means the last step is, if you make a human being convinced they don't have a mind, that's it. That's it. That's the end of the unknown. After we killed God, we then killed the unknown, and then we became mindless machines, probably, at that point. Various philosophers, I think it was a French philosopher, I don't know who, but there was this idea of the spirit in the machine. Maybe an American philosopher. Let me see who the philosopher was. I mean, this is a philosophy podcast. Alright, let's see. What was the guy's name? I'm just typing in Google spirit in the machine guy. Okay, ghost in the machine? No. Okay, maybe. Just a second, folks. I'm trying to find this. Why is it not here? Okay, Google is active. Spirit machine. Philosophy. Come on, Google. Oh, there we go. The ghost in the machine means the consciousness or mind carried in a physical entity. Gilbert Ryle. Sounds American. Coined the term in his 1949 work, The Concept of Mind, as a criticism of René Descartes. Okay. Descartes believed in dualism, the idea that the human mind is not physical, that it exists independently of the human brain. Yeah, René Descartes received it that way. This idea of the ghost in the machine can be seen, you know, as a embodiment of that question of the true nature of the dualism René Descartes spoke about. So this idea of the ghost in the machine, now I have this thing in these talks where I say, dear listeners, whoever you are, wherever you are, your mind has an ability to see a symmetrical opposite and, let's say, an asymmetrical. So what do I mean by that? That means you can see the reverse of the phenomena, you can fathom it in your inner realms, and you can also fathom the symmetrical opposite of it. So what do I mean by this? I mean, for example, we're wondering about ghost in the machine, we flip it around like a fat pancake, and we wonder about what if the machine is in the ghost. Okay, and so that's kind of more closer to where I'm trying to take this talk, that we, through different phases of evolution, I explained my own in the previous talk before this, but here's the thing, that we are right now, if you ask the general, any person, what do you know? What do you know, human being on this earth? And you'll see the knowing in accordance to the senses is very immediately that there is a body. Now it's very easy. Look in the mirror, you'll see your body. You know your body. But now, if somebody told you, try to see your mind in the mirror, is that possible? Can you look at your mind in the mirror? Or is the mind the one looking? Right? So I feel at some point this dualism René Descartes spoke about, all human beings will be acquainted with it once they wonder about the nature of really what's going on here. You know? Energies become conscious of itself, evolution evolved to a subject to itself, now the subject is wondering if it's really a subject, the world is divided between groups of people believing for different storylines. You know, like what are we doing here, all these human beings, you know? So there needs to be some footing, you know, there needs to be some sort of ethos at work. What does that mean? That means it's every bird of civilization has a freedom to fly anywhere. You can fly anywhere. You cannot care about your civilization. You can look at this 4 billion year old science project and be like, why should I engage it? You know, I'm just going to go live in my private island or something, you know. But you'll see this is the greatest game to play. And so this game has brought us to a point where now we're wondering about the nature of matter. And so our language, what it does, with the linguistic simulation that we're all hovering in right now, I'm speaking to you through the linguistic simulation. That means there's no other way aside from using language as a technology for me to communicate to you. I could sing, but I could whistle, guys. You guys want me to finish the rest of the talk through whistling. So you see, language is very crucial. Now, language has made us wonder about the ghost in the machine and the machine in the ghost. And the implication of that idea is either, if you look at the notion of cause and effect, you are either wondering, was the cause objective and the effect subjective, or was the cause unknown and subjective and the effect objective? And metaphysicians, let us say, in this world, metaphysics, people who they look at life through deeper dimensions beyond the status quo's narratives of materialistic basement narratives. I'm just saying that there's a huge chance that we are not just matter, and we're not souls. Not like like Casper, like a ghost in the body, even though I'm saying spirit in the machine, but I'm saying when it's not like we're souls. I feel the understanding that's going to move the gears of the advanced civilization to come civilization 2.0 is that it is the result of phenomenology is a conclusion of a process as much as you're aware of. That means when you really wonder about a human being's knowledge, that's a good question, because you know it's like, if we treat knowledge like a liquid, then what kind of container are you? You know, and could you, the way you are containing life, could it suggest what you know and what you don't know? So other scholars have spoken about this. For example, Terence McKenna spoke about it as if a sort of movement of the body into a higher mind. You know, some scholars are looking at this world and they're like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. They're like, wait a minute, who's asking if it's physical? You know, who's using the language? This concept of who am I, it's the greatest mystery to human being. Look, wonder about it. You know, you're going to see you're in the middle of a dream. That when we go back in time, we can't see the origin. When we go forward in time, we can't see. So technically, you can't blame those people who thought life was a simulation and a dream, because it's like a dream. You woke up in the middle. You're like, okay, where did it start? You know. That means that's an interesting notion, that the human being is not conscious of birth as an individual. Like when the doctor slaps the newborn child on its back so the child's breathing begins, its lungs begin activating, the child doesn't turn back around to the doctor and be like, thank you, sir, thank you for, The newborn infant just cries, it's not an individual yet. So it's very obvious that if we feel individual, it is an addition. It's something added. It's a luxury. That means if situations get really messed up, we can all descend to savage animalhood. Like how many movies are they going to make about that? So, so I'm saying at some point, I think in probably multidimensional oriented civilizations around the, let's say, in our galactic cluster or whatever. The notion is that suddenly there comes a moment where you're like, is matter moving mind or is mind moving matter? If we equate simply the mind as the unknown and matter as what is known. Right now, I say it personally as the objective realms. In front of my eyes, objective realms. I'm seeing matter. When I close my eyes, I'm not seeing matter, but I see something. I see my memories, I can see my visualizations, my attention has some sort of room of a form to move in even though my eyes are closed. So you see that when you close your eyes, I consider that the inner realms, because where is the light? That means if you right now remember some memory of like your childhood, some sunset or some evening, you looked at the sky, you're going to be like, my eyes are closed right now. How am I seeing in my inner realms that? Do you see? So this is why the word inner realm is necessary. And if people don't discriminate between this, then you confuse people for language, and it becomes brutal. Like we're seeing it in the Western PC culture of like, the poor guy says something, a group of people don't like it, he has to come and apologize for the rest of his life. It's sad. It's sad that it's like freedom has come to a point where there is a scrutiny. And of course, it's a very hard problem. Language is very complex because language is a technology. Some people can use the technology for good, some people can use the technology for bad. If we wanted to have some sort of moral system to guide this, it would be very hard for the system to decide who is good and who is bad. A lot of things echo. I think at the end of the day, it's human beings, and the attention is directing the sense of reality, that your senses and reality. Anyways, so this simultaneity of spirit in the machine simulating this animate sense of humanhood, that means the materialistic reality causing an immaterial hallucination. This is why certain neurologists are like, yeah, free will is an illusion. What do you want me to say? We're a bunch of atoms in a complex formation. So you see, like we've even gone that far. where the atheist denied God, then denied himself who denied God. That's the issue. If it's just purely materialistic, then there's no reason. Then it's like every person has all from the beginning of reality has lied. Every person who said I love you, is that Adam saying I love you to Adam? So anyways, this notion of a state of mind where the relationship of a physical phenomena leading, causing a sort of immaterial effect, a non-physical effect, and a non-physical phenomena causing a physical effect. And I feel in the human psychology, especially those interested in mysticism, there will come a moment where the relationship of the microcosm and the macrocosm stops. That means the concept of fractals is no longer conceptual. There's no small and big anymore in that state of mind, I find. And the question comes that if your attention is beyond form, then what are we looking for? If there is a chance, 0.00, whatever amount of zeros you want, this is all machine in the ghost situation right now in this world of ours, then it's as if it was never visible, you know, the invisible. we hadn't allowed it. You know, for me it's strange. When you look at human minds, they're like generators of form, processors of form, of sensory information. The human brain seems to process it, and it processes it, and it displays either a rational outcome or irrational. What does that mean? That means there's many kinds of human beings, many kinds of brains, many ways these brains have been trained to relate to themselves as a mind. You know, and the conditioning of the human being is complex. Like on some level, it's very interesting that the person can forget events, because certain events you do want to forget. You know, certain situations, the person doesn't need to have linger in their mind. You know. So I feel this is what I meant by the value of the mind in the subtitle, that it is between the middle way, like the Buddha said, between the full known and the full unknown. That means it's kind of strange. It's like human beings are oscillating between feeling the unknown is moving the known and the known is moving the unknown. When I'm in my conscious waking state, right now, the known is moving the unknown. You know, and there could be moments where I just watch and I feel the unknown is moving the known. But in my dream state, that's more unknown moving the known. That means the sun may appear in the middle of the dream. But in deep sleep, that's the unknown moving, believe it or not, the unknown at that point. So all relationships of human beings, in whatever context they see themselves as a concept in, there's the unknown. There's literally a curtain on every branch of knowledge. When they pull that, they'll realize no branch of knowledge stands alone when the world has to appear as one. Because we are individuals, we want to process everything individual. Because we think it's just the person says me, the person becomes an I thought, as certain yogis had suggested. When the person becomes an I thought, then it's in some sense like, I don't know, you're living with the thought is living you. You're not living beyond the thought even. I was listening to this man named Jordan Peterson speak, and he was speaking about the meaning of life, and he was saying that the question the person asks is very important. That means any situation where I have personally experienced something where I couldn't understand what happened, you know, I knew that there was probably someone in the world or somebody who was seeing my blind spot. I don't know if people notice this, but your blind spot is seen by another driver, easily. But you don't see your blind spot easily. And so this is why the question in life is really important. What does that mean? That means, let's say an example. Let's say the person says, I messed up. I'm stressed. I'm mess stressed. Man, that's so silly. When you're messed up and stressed, I'm mess stressed. What I'm saying is you can see that there is an angle. I don't know if people feel this, if anyone who's ever made a mistake has felt this, but it was as if there was an angle missed, and that angle couldn't have been noticed until, the situation was missed or whatever. I feel that when it comes to human psychology, communication and time are the two factors that heal things. That means if the problem is from a human mind, you can always talk it out. I'm not joking. The mind is so advanced, it can negotiate its way to happiness. So communication would be the thing, because sometimes when the person has a blind spot, what does that mean? You got to go find out what that blind spot was. You got to go find out what you were missing. And a great question to always ask is, what am I not seeing that you are seeing? I'm telling you guys, go ask this from anyone in any situation, and they instantly help you. This question has never let me down, Because the issue in society is, especially when you're looking for, let's say, information, is honesty. One thing people will realize about the social fabric, that if you're too honest, people are like, what is this sheep doing in the lines? Little do people know, an honest civilization is the roar of the civilization. You living an honest life means you saw nature before you died. But the person who lives a dishonest life, that means you're living a life where a part of your psychology doesn't approve. I feel communication heals all linguistic words, as far as I'm concerned. You don't know, as soon as I realized this, my life changed. Every person who, through different moments in my life, when I look back at it, there was a time where I would get into fights or something, and a person would become an enemy, and we would become opponents, Later, did I realize that every day people wake up, they're trying to be a new version of themselves, subconsciously. So that means there's this saying, I wish I had a time machine and I could go back and tell this, but yesterday's enemy is tomorrow's friend. That means the mind can paint a picture where it's win-win. There was something about communication painting the context before the concepts arise, And the cool thing about communication is people don't realize. Usually, of course, we are animals, and of course there's an animalistic component to our whole reproduction aims and whatnot. But I'm saying the human being should realize that every human being has an inner realm. And in their inner realm, they're trying to make an effort to be something. And if they feel they can't be that, they can't be in accordance to their inner realms, they usually give up. Like, it's very rare, unless you're like Mother Teresa level, where you're so selfless that it's as if, like, You know, you only see other people's selves, you know. I feel I sometimes you know, like I haven't said it in these talks, but in some of my writings, I called it puppy psychology. A lot of people have puppy psychology, and it's strange. It's strange. It's not lion psychology, it's puppy psychology. They want to just do something good in the eyes of something. That means it's as if hilarious, you know? They said, they said, God is watching in a theocratical society. But people realize the only thing that is judging them is the past. And it's as if when you look at the will of the future, it's the past, you know? And because the idea of God sees God there, then man, so the past of man is God alone, you know? The body feeling it has a soul is a known individual object wondering about the, let's say, collective unknown subject and beyond. I'm telling you, we're not language. We're not, we're creatures of attention before we're creatures of language. Language is like an invisible mask that gives all phenomenology an additional value. What does that mean? That means that object in front of me, suddenly it's not just an object, which was its first value, it's an object which is a tree, you know? Where I look at this object in front of me, you know, and this isn't just a cup, it's a red cup. Do you see? Do you see how it is the human mind imposing the layers of justification of how subjects link to objects? What we want, whether we consciously know or not as a species, is we want an advanced civilization. But we want an advanced civilization that is not sacrificial. Even though life feels like an energetic sacrifice, I like literally all these years that I've been alive, it feels like my every day has its toll. It's like every day gives something internally and takes something externally, you know. And so it's not about just power, because power, but even the oldest, like the most powerful person is going to get old. It's like, what power do you have then, you know? So you see, power is a mirage in a desert where it's just a simple civilization taking baby steps towards its advancement. Okay? We are honestly like a young civilization. This is why I'm telling people be playful with language. I think for the next 100 years we have to be playful with language because we can't discriminate yet between whether we are a subject or an object or there is something else. That the unknown is staring at the known, not the known staring at the unknown. There's a poet named Rumi, and he says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a place. I feel that is the same place the Buddha found. Uh, he says, when the soul sits on that grass, on that grassland, the world is too full to talk about. That means I often wonder, is the completion of the human being silent? Is victory a silent gaze at what happened and how the world moved on? What is the value? What is the value? Because it's so fragile. It's so short, life. And in some days it appears extremely long, but but there is something about a feeling which it's a nostalgic feeling of a once in a lifetime opportunity. I didn't realize this when I was young. So I missed out on trusting myself, and I missed out on a lot. Because the way this society is designed is it's like attention oriented. You know, people are trying to occupy their attention, and they mainly try to occupy their attention through objective activities, but very few people actually study the nature of the attention. And it's not very few people, but very few people care to do something that the whole civilization updates. It's like, for how long? For how long? It's like, is nobody going to create a new alphabet? Is nobody going to add out letters to the alphabet? Is it just going to be this? We just once created a language and that is it? You know, why isn't it's like, I feel like no child is allowed to graduate unless they create a word. They have to create a concept. You know, the educational system has to challenge the human being. It has to be, believe it or not, like the Spartan movie, where, you know, where the guy throws his kid into like a forest and he's like, only when you jump backwards and kill a wolf, you're my son. You know? And the son's like, no problem, Dad, I got this, you know? So the implication was that if you have an opportunity between the weak and the strong, I mean, go for the strong. Why? Because that's what civilization is trying to do. We're trying to just, like, what is the aim? If you think about 10,000 years, 100,000 years in the future, what? We're going to endlessly overpopulate everywhere we see? There's going to be human beings everywhere? The whole cosmos is going to get crowded with human beings? You know? What is the aim? And it seems to be a natural event. There seems to be a wisdom to the land, as the native shamanic mind gracefully felt the wind passing by. You know, there's more to this reality. You know, it's just that we don't know how to comprehend it, and we've limited ourselves to just a purely materialistic lens. And there's no issue, but society is not. Again, you could be the greatest scientist, find the most accurate scientific finding, only to realize you're bringing it to a civilization where people have an emotional dimension. You know, so many irrational things happen all day. That means if AI looked at civilization, it'd be like, what are these stumbling clowns doing? You know, these stumbling clowns made me. Holy shit! Like. So. But that's the thing. We have the dimension of art. That means what makes no sense to AI in its rational calculations, for us has value. There is value to just having a good moment. You know? There's a value to trying the new without even knowing the odds. Because why else is it here? Why else are you designed? If you were air right now, sure, go do nothing in this life. But because you have a biological human design, perhaps your design is your instruction book. Perhaps your design is your commander. Perhaps you must look in the mirror until you be like, holy shit, I'm a species. Part of a species. Maybe I should go do something here. You know? Because the work is your own. All work has been like this, you know? They create this intimidating picture, and of course, corporate culture, it's destroying the potential of work. What does that mean? That means we don't realize it, but it has to do, the quality of someone's work has two factors, okay? How much care they have for what they want to do, okay? And how comfortable they are. That means if a student somehow cared for what the teacher was saying and was comfortable in that situation to care, genius would rise. That child would have no obstacle. Do you know? That means where are those teachers that instead of slamming rulers on the table, telling the child not to daydream, the teacher shouts from the children and asks questions from the children instead of the children asking questions from the teacher. The children don't know anything about the topic until the teacher teaches it. You know, so the questions are limited. So the landscape has to change. And believe it or not, I think human teachers might become obsolete. I feel the entertainment industry, the cinema is going to become like, at best, like a school, you know, unless they bring some theatrical performance, you know, where it's not a teacher, it's like a story. You know, it's like, so we won't have teachers for courses, we'd have performers for courses, you know. I don't know, but I feel there's many ways phenomena can change if you can look at it from a different angle. And if you find something you care about and something you're comfortable doing, now the only test becomes how far you're willing to see who you are if you continue. That's the thing. Because really, if you want to be rational about it, we're in a sphere on a vacuum, and we created every word known to man. That means we spoke it, we engaged it with it. You know what I mean? That means on some level, man is writing his own story. So cute, adorable. On a rock in this such a giant place, we are telling stories about what is truth. Oh, this is true, that is true. How lovely. You know, let's have a cup of tea. You know? But after that, return back to reality. Because reality is vast and unknown. And it's this fear of unknown that has obsessed people to bunker down in thinking that one ideological system is the owner of everything. Huh? You really? You know? Language is is a technology. It's a vehicle for meaning. But who the meaning is for is not the language. That means, do you feel a concept is speaking to you right now, ladies and gentlemen? Is language speaking to you? Is an idea speaking to you? Or is an intelligent position that observes many ideas speaking to you? So if it observes many ideas, how could it be one idea? How could a thought think of a thought? You know? This means that it's the issue. I tracked it back, guys. It was René Descartes' I think, therefore I am, which meshed in with the industrial efforts of technology and progress of technology, and people suddenly encapsulated as we're thoughts. That's not what, I don't think René Descartes meant we're thoughts. He says, I can't doubt the one who's doubting. That's what he meant by I think, therefore I am. The light in the room can't be doubted. The light of intelligence in the room that is you can't be doubted, really. So this progression from the body's soul to the soul's body, I feel, is a rhythm. I feel right now we're raindrops falling from a sky, and we don't realize vertical dimension. Oh no meaning. We're raindrops falling out of nowhere. What's the point? But when the raindrops hit the ocean, the question ceases to exist of the individualism. You know, Socrates, before he was sentenced to a sort of death in old Athens back in the day, because of some, I don't know. I mean, I know, but it's like because of something he said. Now, what happened is that Socrates, people were there, and he tells the people there, they're like, it's his last thing he's telling his like entourage or his people who saw him in the lifetime, you know, people who saw his existence, you know, and he says to them, I will either go to a place where there is no Socrates, his famous words. No Socrates. And then he says, or I will go somewhere where all the questions I have been wondering about my whole life, I will see their answer. Do you see? That means at the end of it, it was the coin flip. I mean, who knows? You know? Imagine right now human beings are like trees simulating higher form life. You can see it various ways. It's just about your relationship with form. And the Diamond Sutra gave this incredible advice: keep your mind, whatever this mind is to. I reduce it. If I have to say something, I'll say attention. Your mind is your attention. Where your attention is where the presence of your mind is. You know, and it's the same thing with human beings. If as a man, personally, like if as a man you just focus on the objective attractiveness of a woman, it's as if like it's idol worship. It's weird, you know. But if you see that every human being has a mind, and the mind is the signal, that means when I look at human beings, I'm seeing literally their brains are signal projectors. It's as if their brains are in like probes exploring the terrain. You know what I mean? Like there's something with the processing of the mind, and every person's DNA is different. So that means we're 8 billion different ways the view of the world can be processed. And we're fighting over who is true. We're 8 billion different DNA, different eyes of creatures, and we think we have to all see the same thing and believe the same thing, and yay, that's success. Honestly, sometimes I'm like, I look at nature and I'm like, God, are you serious? But every point in history has its greatness. You just have to find it. I thought it was pretty physical, but right now, the most important thing for the next 30 years before the year 2050, where a technological singularity is forecasted by certain futurists. Language. Dear human beings, wonder about language. Language is the mystery. Language is where it's kept. Language is the subjective color of the world that we put on the physical outline. So imagine like a coloring book. So it's kind of like the outlines of the color is different from the book. Similarly, the physical reality is different from the subjective meaning that arises in it. Guys, there was this French philosopher. Honestly, like 2 episodes ago, I spoke about Deleuze, Gilles Deleuze, and I never went into a quote tunnel, and I feel like now is a good time to go into a quote tunnel of this philosopher, this French philosopher. He's the man who has this idea that the act of creation is simultaneously an action of resistance. For me, all philosophers hold their honor. They are just comrades on the same battlefield reporting in their findings. There's this hidden thing that philosophers, people don't realize it, but some philosophers, I think they realize it. That what's going on is there's this collective puzzle, and every philosopher has dared to move beyond the status quo of their time, at the hood of to lift the hood of the engine of reality. And is it just an engine? Or is there something more? And are we creatures that find ourselves transcendentally alive in music, in dance, in the arts, in anything where man feels through a rhythm he is touching the beyond? So I'm going to read some quotes from him. Gilles Deleuze says the problem is no longer getting people to express themselves, but providing little gaps of solitude and silence in which they might eventually find something to say. Repressive forces don't stop people from expressing themselves, but rather force them to express themselves. What a relief to have nothing to say, the right to say nothing, because only then is there a chance of framing the rare, or ever rarer, the thing that might be worth saying. Gilles Deleuze says, guys, this is the quote tunnel, so I'm reading a bunch of quotes from Deleuze. Gilles Deleuze says, a concept is a brick. It can be used to build a courthouse of reason, or it can be thrown through the window. Gilles Deleuze says a creator is someone who creates their own impossibilities and thereby creates possibilities. That's the thing. That means when somebody tells you something is impossible, that's their impossibility. Then you gotta first return to your impossibility, and then with whatever hand that you're dealt, which is your eyes, you work with reality. Gilles Deleuze says, bring something incomprehensible into the world. Gilles Deleuze says the self is only a threshold, a door, a becoming between two multiplicities. There we go. Another continental philosopher. Gilles Deleuze says, underneath all reason lies delirium and drift. Guys, he appears as a continental philosopher in that quote. He may be an analytical philosopher. I think he probably is an analytical philosopher. Gilles Deleuze says, underneath all reason lies delirium and drift. Wow. That's very true. There was a time I spoke about the inner realms as if like the outer realms are on thin ice, and that thin ice is how thoughts change quicker than man. Gilles Deleuze says, write from a rhizome. Increase your territory by deteriorization. Extend the line of flight to the point where it becomes an abstract machine covering the entire plane of consistency. What's a rhizome? Sorry guys, I gotta look up. I've never seen this word in my life. Rhizome. I don't know if it's a word he created or it's actually means something. Let me see. Oh yeah, rhizome. A continuously growing horizontal underground stem that puts out lateral shoots and adventitious roots at the intervals. Okay, form a rhizome. That means when you form something, you're bringing shape. When you're bringing shape, why would a person bring shape? It is for direction. So he's saying right. All right, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, sorry about that. I had to handle something, talk to someone. Uh, anyways, to get back. So, welcome to the chat section, everyone. Um, oh, nice. You know, there's been moments where I have wondered about my ancestors, and I noticed that little did they all know in how many ways the world would change. And any person who has a sort of stress or fear of this world, you're going to notice it's going to change in so many ways. The cool thing is, you can be part of that change. You can be a conscious moving factor of your civilization, a conscious gear in the machine that attempted the ultimate. You know, it's not enough for people just attempting enlightenment. We need to create an enlightened civilization. How? How do we do this? Perhaps every person, every user of this collective vehicle must care to look in front of their eyes. Either knowledge is sandwiched between two unknown factors, or the unknown is sandwiched between two known factors. If we think we are the known, we will think the unknown is a veil, and we will think there is another known. If we think we're an unknown, we're gonna feel there's something to know now, and beyond this, it just returns to the unknown. Alan Watts had this approach where he's like, just like a tree apples, this planet peopled. If we take that traditional model of the body, mind, soul, we consider the body to be 100%, let's say, known, the mind being semi-known, semi-unknown, and the soul being complete unknown. Now, the known is where consciousness is happening. Consciousness seems to arise with form. That means even if consciousness was beyond the form is still here. So the relationship of the body and the mind is known, a simple known phenomena, and as it goes to complexity, it becomes impossible to linearize. Therefore, because there's still intelligence, nonlinear intelligence, people try to give a face to the unknown. What if the unknown doesn't have a face? What if energy never had a face? What if attention is energy conscious of itself? And playfully, if you look at the first law of thermodynamics, one energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can change to one form or another. So I feel that if energy is conscious, it's just form. It changes form, but the energy is energy, you know? So guys, in the chat section, somebody has asked the question. Joshua says, what do you think of forced evolution from fifth dimensional creatures on Jupiter? Okay, man, I don't know. It's like, do you have their cell phone? Can I talk to them? I'm joking. Here's the thing. I would say that if we are to communicate, like if somebody asked Mr. Within, if an alien species came to Earth, who should go and speak to the alien species? I would say a Tai Chi master, a Qigong master. I feel that it would be a language of energy and how attention is in energy. And when it comes to higher dimensions, I don't know, people, like there was a time in personally in my life, there was, I think it was 2013, during the most Tibetan Buddhist phase of my life. It was kind of like actually fascinating when I think about it. So in 2013, imagine me with Tibetan Buddhist beads, these synchronistically, like I'd found, you know, these Tibetan Buddhist beads. And I don't know, for some time I felt very close to the Andromeda galaxy. You know, there was a sort of inner art to just the word Andromeda, you know, and there was that feeling like, wow, you know, like there's something there, you know. But I'm telling you, when I realized the nature of mysticism, that means it's higher. It's we're wondering about the nature of formed phenomena. It doesn't matter if it's alien. It doesn't matter if it's this. It doesn't matter if it's Greek mythological metaphors. It doesn't matter whatever it is. It's just the relationship on a design and energetic level. You know. So I would say that I tend not to. One thing that came in my writings when I felt like the logos whispered it through the sentences that I wrote on a piece of paper. It was this idea, don't see a face. Don't see a face to the unknown. Because you get attached to that face. And then you become a conditional creature to the unknown. So only in a unique way you feel you have access to the unknown. And then you get sucked into the what they call sanskara, which are the impressions of the mind. You know, that means there's some people who may listen to me right now and feel like, okay, this guy's saying his own ideas, you know? And it is true that I'm generating these. But at the same time, in my inner realms, the impressions are there. So I want you to think that it's as if we're looking at a person and we're like, yo, this person did he have a past life, a future life? I'm saying this is just the tip of the iceberg. That means there is so much more to what we are that conception falls short, I find. So I would say geometry would be, I think many people, when they generate geometry, there's probably people in the world who are drawing geometry randomly. If you are one of those people, you may be very open to the whole psychedelic extraterrestrial idea, you know? But Mr. Within is telling you, those with empty hands are truly welcomed by the unknown. You know, if you take a thought to the unknowns might slap that thought out of your head. But if you watch life, and this is the value of honesty, where it brings you to the pure question, the pure view of your moment, where you're like, okay, you know, it's like, I don't have time for these lies. The person, you know, wonders about their presence. You see, what if one day you realized the unknown was you? Would that astonish you? Would that shock you, whoever you are in the world who you think you are communicating to an interdimensional being beyond the veil? You know, would it surprise you if you suddenly realize all these Jungian synchronicities guiding you? Would it surprise you if you suddenly realize your mind and your moment are inseparable? This world is so beautiful and it's so unknown, and I feel there is nothing more. The greatest idea on this planet is not the word greatness, is the unknown of the unknown. That is the only thing that for me is the unfathomability factor of my moment of existence. It honestly, I think it's one of the reasons why I'm still around here, you know, in this plane. Because the unknown, the unknown's relationship with itself is most likely not dual. Just like how you feel your body, you don't feel separate from your body, for example. I personally feel like an attention. I feel like my physical body is like a candle and my consciousness is like a candle flame. And the body is here for some time and it's melting throughout the years, you know? You know, it's like as the person finishes, you know, their uh, as the person pilots their lifetime, eventually they reach a point of the plane of existence where the pilot has to eject. You know, or the pilot, if the pilot is wise, he lands everything, then ejects. You know, then leaves. You know, seldom this is said, but if the true pilot waits for everybody to leave, and then is the last person, even all the stewards leave, and then the pilot is the last person that leaves. You know, probably not. It's not the case, but I'm saying like that's the pilot's honor. We're just energy moving around in human form. You know, it's like an alien comes down to Earth, imagine, and it's like, human being, what are you guys? Tell us your knowledge or something. Somehow, let's say they speak English. We would be like, we don't know, man. We thought you could tell us. You know? Guys, I'm going to share with you an idea. from the Bhagavad Gita. And even though I realize I never finished that Deleuze tunnel, quote tunnel, but I would say that in the Bhagavad Gita it says the body, the physical body is like the horses. The mind is the chariot driver, and the soul is hidden in the chariot, sitting inside the chariot. This kind of model is shared in the Bhagavad Gita, this sort of structure to thought. And so there was this idea that if the mind of the person falls asleep, the chariot, the soul from the chariot, what do you call it? The soul comes to the chariot driver and taps him on the shoulder and says, "Buddy, buddy, pay attention to the body." Do you know? That means there was this sort of idea that your all physical sensation, it's administrator, and it's as if all senses are like strangely, like there's a gravitational pull of sensory phenomena to you being there. Do you know? And there's been many times, guys, where I can say when I felt my mind, I was in a dangerous situation. I felt in my life it was as if like the chariot driver was my intuition, was that feeling of my instincts and senses all summed up. It's like as a human being in that situation, what do you do? You know? The soul in modern times should be engaged as the idea of presence. The mind should be engaged as where personality is occurring. And the body, well, it's the beautiful body. The body is the body, you know. For some personal trainers, their body is their buddy. But anyways, guys, this relationship of the body, mind, soul, the person in the chariot driver, the horse, I feel that now we're reaching a time where instead of there being the mind, okay, as we're becoming conscious as mind, it's becoming the soul is coming beside the chariot driver, the mind is resting in the soul, is driving the horses. And I feel that is the whole Taoistic approach. That was the silent Taoistic walk of Lao Tzu. You know, the implication of that. That your presence is starting from energy trusting itself to be something. And life intelligence can move in many ways. I'm going to tell you the story I just remembered. For many of you, probably it's going to be new. This story is about a king. And this king has this majestic horse, these 4 horses, and later on in the story, I mean, you'll see these 4 horses are metaphors for yoga. But anyways, there's this king, and he can't tame these savage, crazy horses. He has these majestic 4 horses, but they're crazy, you know? And the king commands his councilman, and he's like, find somebody who can tame this shit. What is this? You know, I'm a king, for God's sake. What kind of kingdom we running here? And so what happens is people come from different parts of the land. These horses are so crazy and savage, you know. That people try to put a saddle on the horse, and the horse pushes them off, and it's like they break some bones or something. It's messed up. It's like these horses are crazy. This kid, especially this yoga practitioner, let's say, or let's just say this kid sees this king's offer, and the king's like, offer it to the public. You know, it's like huge reward. Okay, some sort of treasure reward. Okay, so this kid goes to the king and says, King, I will tame these 4 horses, but under one condition. I need a year. I need 1 year to tame these horses. Will you allow me? And it's the king. The guy's not going to like steal from a king. You know what I mean? And what happens is the king laughs. He's like, okay, good luck. Nobody's been able to tame these crazy horses. The kid goes, it becomes a year and 1 month. And the king's like, this is this kid. It's not like, you know, I'm about to call, you know, send soldiers to go kill him or something. You know, what is this? And what happens is that in like a year and 1 month, the kid comes. The king is surprised. The king's like, okay, it's like a year. Whatever. The kid comes, and the 4 horses are so tamed and so calm. The whole 4 horses were so calm, and they were just following this guy, and this guy had 1 rope, and all 4 of them were following him, and he came to the palace. And the king is shocked. He's like, you know, it's like, let this man sit at the table, at the king's dinner table or something, you know. This is next level stuff. It's like I couldn't, like the king had seen how crazy the horses were, you know. Like that was entertainment probably for the king's sons or whatever. But anyways, the king is surprised. And the king at the feast says to the kid, he's like, you got to tell me, I'm the king, you got to tell me, why did you say 1 year? Why did you need 1 year? You know, everybody had just gone straight away trying to like tame these horses, and it was impossible. The kid starts explaining to this king what he did. And he says, he took the horses to this field and let them go. He released the horses. And the king's just listening. It's like, you release the horses? And the king's like, yeah. And the guy's like, yeah. And then the guy was like 24/7 looking at these horses. The guy was like, you know, his intuition was spot on. So what happens is the guy, he says to the king, when the horses would go drink water, I would go right beside them and I would drink water. I would go drink water right beside the horses, you know. And he says, when the horses would, for example, graze, he would take out his lunch and he would eat right beside the horses, you know. And the guy says to the king, I'm just trying to envision it, guys, the scenery. Like, the guy says to the king, I was with these horses for so long in everything that they did that they started to treat me as a 5th horse. So this guy spent so much time with the horses
that the horses were like, they treated him as like, okay, this guy's like another weird horse. He's doing exactly what we're doing, you know? And after a while, he says to the king, then I put my hand on one of the horses and the horse moved away. Then I didn't do anything and I lived again with them for the same thing again. And then he says, I put my hand, the horse had no problem. Then he tried to get on the horse had a problem. Then a while passed, you know, he would pet the horse and whatnot, and suddenly he got on the horse, you know? This is like not treating a horse as just horsepower, like 1 horsepower vehicle. You know, a horse is an animal, it's a living being, you know? And the guy says, eventually I put the saddle on the horse and no, none of it had a problem, you know? Sorry guys, the way I explained the guy coming with the horses to the kingdom, the way I should have explained it was that he was on one of the horses and the other 3 were following him. You know? Let's say even without a rope. So what happens is this guy spent a year living with horses. Like if it was a National Geographic thing, like it would have gotten probably like some award, you know, the living with horses guy. Like that's the name of the document. That was the thing. He engaged the nature of the moment. He engaged the nature of that creature. And we human beings, when we can have a tolerance where we realize it's like whether we like it or not, we're on the same sphere. What can we do? You know, it's like after some point we have to remember our humanity before the ideological possession of any sort. The human experience, that on some level we're all conscious tourists in manifestation here for a little while. Or the whole initiative of the planet should be increasing the quality of life. Do you know? And so it has 2 factors where the person has to pull themselves out of the situation they're in. You know, whatever messed up situation they're in, you got to pull yourself out, and then 50% the civilization has to give a shit. You know, so the civilization has to update. And when the guy says this to the king, he doesn't say the civilization should update to the king. But I'm just saying, it's like that means if you think about it, they say an image is 1,000 words. Now, life is a film, so you can endlessly have words on this, you know, landscape. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I guess one last idea to say, once we cross the mind's valley, we would come to the presence. The presence, so far, the way I've been acquainted with it, is that it is attention that is attributelessly observing attributes. That means very simply, you're not just this body, you're also the space that you're aware of where this body gets its definitions from. So your mind, you have to study how your intelligence is like space and like matter. You know, you gotta be a scholar of the eyes that only you can see through. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. The ultimate evolution of it is probably some collective attributeless field. But who knows? I feel probably not now, but like give it 3,000, maybe 600 years, stretching to maybe even 10,000 years, that might be a point where we stop existing as individuals on this planet. So it's a long way to go, but I feel there may come a time where the body's soul, the matter being in the position of causing the meaning of reality, will suddenly be flipped where space. So it's like a caterpillar experiences a 2-dimensional framework, goes into a metamorphosis strangely, very quickly. I was like, well, what's going on with the evolution, adaptation of a caterpillar? You know, caterpillars like taunting the human being. It's like, yeah, you take millions of years to evolve, but look at me. The butterfly steps out of the cocoon, a creature that has access to the 3-dimensional space. As if it experienced the level, it moved up. it saw something else. It flew in the void where all thoughts arose. So I feel human beings are going through a metamorphosis, and whatever that transition is, I feel it's like right now we are in the known individuals in an unknown world. We will be an unknown world observing a known individual. I feel that's how it escalates. That's if we entertain the Vedic notion of thought that this whole physical existence, like in the Vedanta, they say Mount Meru, if I remember it correctly. And Mount Meru is this multidimensional mountain, and we, this planet, this human civilization, this materialistic reality we see in Vedic thought is the bottom of the mountain, and there are higher dimensions. And as the being ascends to these higher dimensions in that framework of thought, what is going on is from an individual object, the person is becoming the subject, is becoming an avatar of the way knowledge has moved as them. And like legends, like there should be some sort of course, guys, this is just the framework of reality. You know, these are like models. You know, so as far as I'm concerned, what I'm saying is just me putting a glass in front of my eyes and with a marker, imagine writing on that glass. Anyways, I'm gonna open it up to Q&A, guys, for 5 minutes. If people have questions or want to share something, feel free to do so. The talk has ended, and thanks for listening. And guys, the whole the view of evolution in the Vedic notion, you got to realize it's like they kind of see it as if like the same way we see cells in our veins. Imagine the red blood cells in your body suddenly became conscious, you know, and they created their own knowledge and their own sciences, philosophies, religions to try, and then you see it's like suddenly the human being is unfathomable to that which is so infinitesimal compared to what the whole intelligence could be, you know. We have lived in a singular dimension, let us say, a singular way of living. It's easy to be an individual. But what's harder is to see how an efficient collective system can occur. That means whether physics holds the answers or metaphysics holds the questions, or physics holds the questions and metaphysics holds the answers, you know. Regardless of the relationship, it's a movement, it's an event, and that your attention to an event you're in is the most crucial meaning you can that is to be found in. Because anything the person has ever worshipped, it has just been attention it has literally been concentration, has it not? It has been attention. We are attention before we are the language that moves in attention. Yeah. So guys, Honk says in the chat section, there aren't answers to be found in the brain. It's about finding our own beingness in the heart. Yeah, it's I feel it's a simple acknowledgement of the presence. It's like it's not something that you study. It's just you're wondering about instantaneous being. and instantaneity where there's no reference to anything else to be for it to be dual. They asked Kabir, how long does it take to get enlightened? He said half of an instant. Someone in the chat section says information equals in format plus ion. Format, the person says, the way in which something is arranged or set out, formed. Ion, a Latin suffix denoting action or condition. Information, the action of arranging or forming the inner. Yeah. So, no says this in the chat section. You can't. You see, Hunk. I say there's four ways you can. There's four. There's four ways the person can feel. Let's say. I mean, let's say three ways. There's three ways, three sorts of liberations that can occur. Three types of liberation, at least in my school of thought. These three types of liberation, because language is a dualistic technology and we're starting in duality. The liberation from duality is when it suddenly notices the void, or when it suddenly notices the singularity of all phenomena, or it notices the infinite. These are the three types of changes that will suddenly make the human being realize they are not a thought. They are not a subject only, a subject-object relationship, or object-subject, whichever way floats your boat. So I would say the heart, so Honk says in the chat section, in all moments of higher dimensional experience, we will notice we're experiencing from the center of our being in the heart. Yeah, so that's you noticing the singularity of phenomena. But if I asked you where is the heart, that's you noticing the void. If I asked you where is the void, you will look at the infinite stars and know why the void is there. We think the void was here first, then the stars. You know, it's like the seed was planted in the soil before the soil could even be noticed. Anyways, if there's more questions, guys, keep them coming. If not, then I guess contentment is also a path. So Hong says we as humans are in a metamorphosis. Yeah, I'm suggesting that cocoon is language. The cocoon for that metamorphosis is the linguistic simulation. Is how we're still very a language worshipping kind of civilization. You know, we haven't found the royalty, the elegance of the higher dimensional freedoms that are out of curiosity, Actually, never mind. Yeah, the metamorphosis is, yeah, language is like, you know, language is like human beings in the sky. Honestly, we are really like the Transformers, are we not? We're transforming, I mean, cellularly. Our inner realms shift in accordance to the experience we have and how much the person authorizes experience. To care for life is I would say if anybody ever wanted power in life, you should follow that algorithm. The only way to live for life is to live for life. You gotta actually live for life. You gotta, like Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. That means this dude thought it was a simulation. He realized no, it's a field of involvement. You gotta engage. You know? You know, nature has a voice, but you can only hear it when you stop hearing your own. Service is the higher dimensional joy. That's all I'm gonna say, guys. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Might catch you in a couple hours. Blessings.